Choice often appears only after structure has already determined what information can survive movement. Systems do not fail when messages stop being sent. They fail when messages arrive intact but no longer carry the conditions that produced them. Bureaucracy appears to organize knowledge, to preserve it, to move it across distance. Yet over time, the very mechanisms designed to stabilize information begin to filter it, compress it, and delay it until what arrives is no longer a reflection of reality, but a residue of earlier conditions. The pattern is not sudden. It forms slowly, through accumulation, until coordination continues, while understanding quietly thins. Across large administrative territories, information does not move freely. It travels through terrain that resists it. Rivers redirect routes. Mountain ranges divide regions into separate logistical worlds. Seasonal weather interrupts movement at predictable intervals. Coastal networks accelerate exchange in some directions while isolating inland zones. Roads extend through valleys and plains, but each extension creates new distances that must be maintained. Messages move along these pathways, carried by individuals, animals, or vessels, each constrained by speed, endurance, and interruption. At each point of transfer, information is exposed to delay, transcription, and reinterpretation. The system depends not on perfect transmission, but on repeated approximation. In one region, a report begins its journey along a river corridor, moving downstream faster than any land route could allow. It reaches a port where maritime routes take over, accelerating movement across long distances. But beyond the coast, inland settlements rely again on slower transport, reversing the earlier acceleration. Time accumulates unevenly. The system does not experience delay as a single interruption, but as a series of variable intervals, each embedded in geography. At first, these variations appear manageable. Bureaucratic structures emerge to compensate. Standardized forms replace narrative reports. Fixed reporting intervals impose rhythm on irregular movement. Hierarchies filter information upward, compressing detail into summaries that can travel more efficiently. Storage systems accumulate records, creating reference points that stabilize interpretation. Each layer reduces uncertainty by reducing variation, but reduction carries a cost. Detail is not preserved, it is selected. Silence enters the system gradually. Not the absence of messages, but the absence of conditions. A shipment delayed by seasonal flooding is recorded as late, but the pattern of flooding itself is not transmitted with equal clarity. A local adjustment in labor allocation is summarized as compliance with quotas, while the improvisation required to meet those quotas disappears. Information continues to move, but the relationship between data and environment begins to thin. In a provincial center, clerks receive reports that arrive weeks after their origin. They reconcile figures against expectations shaped by previous cycles. When discrepancies appear, they are adjusted to fit known patterns, not as deception, but as alignment. The system rewards consistency over accuracy, because consistency stabilizes coordination. Accuracy, when it diverges from expectation, introduces friction. Elsewhere, traders adjust routes in response to shifting conditions, river levels, road deterioration, localized scarcity. These adjustments are immediate and practical, but their cumulative effect does not fully enter the bureaucratic record. Reports note changes in volume or timing, but the underlying causes are fragmented across multiple documents, each simplified to maintain clarity. The system registers outcomes, not processes. Time continues to accumulate inside the structure. Each reporting cycle compresses variation into manageable form. Each transmission step filters detail. Each delay separates information from the conditions that produced it. The system becomes efficient at moving what it can carry, and increasingly unable to represent what it cannot. There is a moment, not marked by any single event, when information arrives already outdated. Not because it moved too slowly, but because the environment changed faster than the reporting structure could adapt. Seasonal patterns shift. Trade flows reroute. Local adaptations accumulate. By the time these changes are recorded, they have already evolved further. The system continues to operate on stable categories that no longer align with unstable conditions. In response, additional layers are introduced. More checkpoints, more summaries, more standardized categories. Each addition is intended to capture complexity, but each also increases the distance between origin and interpretation. Information passes through more hands, more formats, more expectations. The structure thickens, and with it, the path information must travel becomes more indirect. In a distant settlement, supplies arrive according to schedules that no longer reflect local needs. Adjustments are made, storage extended, distribution delayed, substitutions introduced. These adjustments stabilize immediate conditions, but they do not fully enter the system as new parameters. They remain local solutions to systemic misalignment. The reports that follow describe compliance, not adaptation. The system begins to rely on its own outputs as inputs. Previous reports become the basis for current expectations. Forecasts are generated from data that already reflects filtered conditions. Feedback loops close, not around reality, but around representation. Information circulates within the system, reinforcing patterns that originated under different constraints. Movement continues. Documents flow, records accumulate. The appearance of coordination remains intact. But the substance of coordination, shared understanding of conditions, begins to fragment. Different parts of the system operate with different versions of reality, each internally consistent, each partially detached from the others. A sudden compression occurs, not in space, but in time. Multiple discrepancies converge. Delays overlap. Adjustments compound. The system encounters a situation where its categories cannot reconcile incoming information with expected patterns. Reports arrive that cannot be easily aligned. They are neither errors nor confirmations. They exist outside the structure's capacity to interpret. Recognition emerges here, not as a realization by any individual, but as a structural tension. The system detects inconsistency, but cannot trace it back to its sources. It can increase reporting frequency, but this amplifies volume without restoring context. It can demand greater precision, but precision applied to incomplete categories produces clearer distortion. In administrative centers, efforts to correct the flow intensify. Instructions are issued to standardize reporting further, to reduce ambiguity. But ambiguity is not located in language. It is located in the gap between structure and environment. Standardization narrows expression without expanding perception. At the edges, movement continues to adapt. Traders reroute again. Farmers adjust planting schedules in response to shifting supply expectations. Carriers modify routes to avoid deteriorating infrastructure. These changes maintain local stability, but they further diverge from the system's recorded patterns. The more the structure attempts to stabilize information, the more local adaptation operates outside its frame. The question does not appear as a question within the system. It appears as persistent misalignment. But, if it were to be stated, it would take a form without resolution. When information must pass through structures that simplify it, at what point does the system cease to carry information and begin only to carry its own expectations? No answer follows. The system continues to move what it can. Reports are filed, records are stored. Coordination persists in form, even as its content shifts. There is no visible collapse. Roads remain. Offices remain. Procedures remain. Messages continue to arrive, stamped, categorized, archived. But each arrival carries less of the world that produced it. The structure remains intact, even as its connection to external conditions becomes increasingly indirect. Distance remains unchanged. Terrain continues to shape movement. Rivers rise and fall. Roads erode and are repaired. The system overlays this landscape with its own pathways, its own rhythms. But the alignment between these layers is no longer assumed. It must be maintained, and maintenance itself becomes another layer of activity, another set of reports, another cycle of transmission. Silence persists within motion, not as absence, but as reduction. Information becomes lighter as it travels, easier to move, easier to process, and in becoming lighter, it leaves behind the weight of conditions that once gave it meaning. The system does not stop. It continues, carrying what it has learned to carry. And beyond its pathways, the environment continues to change, producing information that will enter the system, be shaped by it, and emerge as something else. Subscribe to Timeless Questions for more thoughtful journeys into the ideas and forces that shape civilizations and continue to shape us.